When someone you love dies and the world shatters, you can't just stay frozen in the rubble reading ancient Greek poetry.
No, you need a way to move through the wreckage. And this is where the text offers a profound geographical map for the journey of grief.
A map?
Yes, in the form of a river. We return here to Hölderlin, specifically his late, masterful hymns about the rivers of Europe, the Rhine and the Ister.
And before we dive into the water, we have to establish a rule for reading this. We have to look at these rivers the way Heidegger did.
Right. The river is not just a pretty metaphor.
It's not just a symbol for the passage of time, like time flows on. For Heidegger and Hölderlin, the river is the active deed of founding human dwelling. Heidegger has this incredibly dense phrase where he calls the river the locality of journeying and the journeying of locality.
Let's unpack that because it sounds like academic word salad.
It really does.
But it's actually a brilliant observation of physical reality. Think about what a massive river like the Rhine actually does to the earth. It doesn't just passively flow through a pre-existing landscape.
The water's movement creates the landscape.
Over millennia, the river cuts the valley. It establishes the floodplains. It dictates exactly where human beings can build their towns, where they can farm, where they can place their bridges.
So the movement of the water physically creates the locality where humans can dwell?
The journey creates the location. Yes.
Okay, I see that. But how does this map onto the psychological journey of someone whose world has shattered?
The central law that Hölderlin's rivers teach is this. You can only become homely through the strange.
Through the strange.
You can only find your home by passing through the alien. Look at his hymn about the Ister, which is the ancient Greek name for the Danube River.
Okay.
The Danube physically flows eastward, emptying into the Black Sea. But Hölderlin writes about the Ister as if it is flowing backward.
Backward?
In spirit, it is always pointing back toward its cultural and historical source in ancient Greece. It seems to dwell at its origin, yet it must physically journey through foreign lands to establish itself.
So the river is flowing forward through space, but backward in spirit.
Yes. The river teaches us that no one is truly native to their own life who hasn't been exiled from it first.
Wow.
True belonging demands a passage through the foreign. You cannot simply sit at the source of the river and claim you understand the ocean.
This maps so flawlessly onto the human experience of profound loss. If you are listening to this and you are navigating heavy grief, think about how this feels.
Grief is the river.
It is. When you lose someone deeply important to you, you feel this massive, overwhelming, backward-flowing pull.
It is an agonizing undertow.
Your mind is constantly pulled backward toward a past you can no longer physically reach. You desperately want to swim upstream to the time before the bowl broke, before the diagnosis.
But at the exact same time, that very current of grief, the daily reality of living with the loss, is physically carrying you forward.
Yes, it is dragging you through an alien landscape, a life you don't recognize, toward a new, hard-won dwelling place in the future.
You are flowing backward in spirit, but forward in reality.
And this philosophical concept from the 19th century aligns perfectly with the most cutting-edge clinical psychology we have today, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. In complicated grief therapy, the core mechanism for healing is a concept called oscillation.
Explain how that works for a patient.
When a patient is stuck in complicated grief, they often try to stop the river. They either become completely paralyzed, obsessing only over the past, or they try to aggressively ignore the loss and force themselves forward into a superficial future.
Just suppressing it.
Right. So CGT therapists train the patient to oscillate between two states.
Yeah.
First, loss-oriented work. This involves deliberately facing the pain, actively revisiting the memories of the deceased, talking through the trauma of the death.
You purposefully swim into the backward flowing current.
You visit the strange, unhomely territory of your own devastation.
Which is exhausting.
It is physically and mentally draining, which is why you must oscillate. The second state is restoration-oriented work.
Restoration-oriented.
This is where you focus on the forward flow. You engage with the new reality, you take steps to rebuild your daily routines. You allow yourself moments of respite.
But the clinical data is clear, right?
Yep.
You cannot integrate a major loss if you refuse to visit the foreign territory of your grief.
Active revisiting of the unhomely is a biological requirement for your brain to update its predictive model and finally establish a new dwelling.
You can't just build a bridge over the river of grief and walk across it dry. You have to get in the water.
And that water is dangerous.
Yeah. Hölderlin's other great hymn is about the Rhine River, and he describes its source up in the Alpine Mountains as this Impatient, violent demigod.
A violent demigod.
It bursts out of the rock with this destructive, raging excess and wants to destroy everything in its path.
But if the Rhine remained a raging torrent, it could never nurture the lush, agricultural valleys of Germany. It would just tear the earth apart.
The river has to temper its own violent origin.
It has to learn how to settle into a sustained, fruitful flow.
This is exactly what the initial impact of trauma feels like. When the news first hits, it is a violent demigod. It is raw, screaming agony that threatens to wash away your entire identity.
But you have to let that initial destructive excess flow through the strange valleys of your life until it tempers into a sustainable sorrow.
A sorrow that can actually water the soil of a new home.
The home we eventually keep is the home we had to lose and travel toward across an alien land.
But as we said, swimming in this water is terrifying. To navigate this unhomely landscape without drowning, we need specific tools.